Hey everyone, I'm Corey with Blue Falcon Board Gaming. For anyone that's new, I'm a United States Marine Corps vet that started the Blue Falcon Board Gaming group here in the Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia tri-state area with the hopes of using board games as a way to promote positive mental health, as well as making board games more accessible in the community by hosting and co-hosting events. I'm excited today. I've got Mr. Jamey Stegmaier here from Stonemaier Games. Jamey, welcome.
Hey, Corey. It was good to see you. The last time I saw you was at Geekway, I believe, right? We've
Yes.
corresponded since then, but yeah, that was when we saw each other face to face, I think, last time.
Yeah. We I got to play the Hunger with you and Megan and your group, and had a blast with it. That was kind of the first deck builder that I had played. Since then, I've bought quite a bit of Dominion and Ascension.
Uh,
Surprisingly, there is a Insane Clown Posse deck builder that is actually good.
okay.
Like it's mechanically it's solid.
Nice.
So, would you care to introduce yourself a little bit for anybody that may not know who you are? I don't think that's going to be a lot of people, but I'm hoping that with my group, I'm reaching new people in the community. So
Yeah,
this might be the first time of them, interacting or running into you.
absolutely. Yeah. My name is Jamey Stegmaier, and I run a company called Stonemaier Games based out of St. Louis, Missouri. And we published, I think, 14 games at this point. We've been around for 10 years. This is our 10th anniversary month celebration right now that we're going through right now. And I'm a designer of some of those games, and I've also worked with other designers for some of those other games. And I also talk a lot about crowdfunding and entrepreneurship and and kind of social movements and all sorts of things on the Stonemaier Games blog, and also game design on my Stonemaier Games YouTube channel.
Yeah, congratulations on the 10 years.
Thanks.
I confirm it's 14 games because I have them all now.
Okay.
The big sale that's going on with your shop right now, it's 10% off for everything. And you get the free order of Smitten. I did that the other day, and My Little Scythe was the last base game that I didn't have.
Oh, okay. Nice.
My toddler, she's about to turn 5, and she's
Okay.
got 2 rows of games on our bookshelf. That's all
Uh-huh.
her. So I'm hoping she can kind of get a hold of Scythe. So
That's
with it
awesome.
being 10 years,
Uh-huh.
if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself from 2012? Like, what 3 things would you tell yourself that you've learned over the past 3 years or 10 years? I mean,
10 years. Yeah. I've learned a lot over the last 3 years too. I, I think the biggest thing would be to kind of believe in investing in myself, basically. Like I tiptoed into it, not knowing if it would work out. And I think that was a good strategy. I think anyone entering this business doesn't really know if it'll work out, or any business really. But I went into it so tentatively that I think I almost missed my chance for it to work out at all, because I didn't invest all that heavily in myself, in the art design, a lot of the things that could make or break a crowdfunding project or a product or a company. And so I wish from the very beginning I could have given myself the confidence to really believe in myself and invest in myself and in the company from the beginning. I think that could have made a big difference. That's the first thing. Yeah. The second thing, kind of related to money too, because a lot of this, like I love the creative side of the business. I love the personal engagement side, but I think a lot of those things I really enjoyed from the very beginning and have continued enjoying to this day. But another thing on the money side is that I wish I had budgeted a little bit better. Like a few of the early mistakes that also could have sunk the company before it even really got off the ground were instances where I didn't budget very well for stretch goals on Kickstarter, like additional things that we could have added to games, things like that. And so I think more careful budgeting is something I would go back and tell myself, like, really get this right. And the last thing, I often think back about the first project, which was viticulture on Kickstarter in 2012. I think back about things that I would change if I would do that would have long-term implications. And I think the last thing I would tell myself then that has implications over the years is to refine all of our games as much as possible to get them right the first time. This is something that I think in the back of my head I was trying to do from the start, but I didn't do a lot of blind playtesting for viticulture. Blind playtesting, for anyone listening who doesn't know what it is when I send out digital files for our games to people around the world and ask them to take the game for a test ride, to give it a spin, see if it works, see if the rules are clear. I could have done a lot more of that up front. And also later on, things like doing better data analyzing to ensure that asymmetric elements of our games were balanced. We've done, because we got to the point where we were doing a lot of play testing, and I was looking at that data, and that was okay. But bringing in a proper data analyst and having them look at the data has made a big difference in more recent years. So those are the three things. There are many other mistakes that I made along the way, things I go back and change for sure, like little momentary mistakes, lapses, other big things. But those are three things that have had an impact over the years.
So with that confidence side of it, is there kind of a moment in your head that sticks out of like you kind of went from not having that confidence to like, okay, I got this. Like I know what I'm doing. Was there anything like that in the past 10 years, or was it kind of after the first funding on viticulture?
Viticulture did give me a lot more confidence, because I really honestly did not know if it would successfully fund. After viticulture, I don't think I had that question for any of our campaigns. I didn't know how well they would do, but I had the confidence that they would fund. But viticulture, I really didn't know. And I think the things that early on in that campaign, when I started to see strangers show up on the campaign to back it and support it and genuinely seem to want the game, that gave me a huge confidence boost, because I went into it thinking, okay, I will need a lot of friends and family to support this thing to get it off the ground. And then the strangers, people I don't know, will be the cherry on the top. But when people started showing up around the world who I didn't know, some people who still buy our games, support our games, or are involved in the company even to this day, they showed up and backed that project. That was pretty incredible for me to see. I still never try to take that for granted, that most of the people that buy our games are people that I'll never have a direct interaction with unless they reach out directly to me. And I think it's incredible that they are excited about our games as I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Just I started the Facebook page and everything back in January, and moving into other social media types, and those first few just likes, and I'm like, who is this person? And I go and look, and there's no mutual friends. I'm like, oh wow, okay,
yeah,
it's nowhere near a Kickstarter campaign, but just those first few, I'm like, I don't know this person, and we don't have mutuals. This is kind of odd now. So what got you into
take a lot of people to do that, to have that feeling? I don't think, like, even just a few. That's how I felt on viticulture. When it was just a few people, I was like, I don't know you, and it's incredible that you're excited about this.
Yeah. So what got you introduced into board gaming before you even became a designer or anything? What was your kind of introduction into board games?
I kind of had two. The first was when I was very young, 5, 6, 7. And my parents played games with us from a very young age. Like I was playing chess with my dad, Monopoly with some friends, games like older games like Millbourne and Scotland Yard. Like we had a lot of games in the family at all times. Some were very simple games like Candyland. There's a game called First to Reverse that was pretty much all luck. But yeah, we had a lot of games in the family. I think because my mom saw games as a way to help us with creative problem solving for like gifted education, that type of thing. And so we had games in the house from a very young age. And my second introduction then as an adult was when I was still playing games, but I was mostly just hosting a weekly poker night. Some friends mentioned that they were playing this game called Catan, or Settlers of Catan, it was called then. And I was like, oh, cool. I didn't know that people were playing games like this now. And I'm excited to give this a try. And so played Catan for a long time. And then Agricola was how I found my business partner. My business partner was a friend who decided to learn Agricola and taught our friend group. And then from then I kind of took it and ran with it from there. But those were the two crucial moments, I think, when I was really young and when I was in my mid-20s with Catan.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of hit on it there. Anytime I tell strangers or people that I just met, that I'm like, yeah, like I really like to play board games on free time, it's usually like, oh, do you mean Clue, Monopoly, stuff like that? Do you see a shift of it being kind of more, I don't want to say acceptable because there's nothing wrong with it, but kind of just normal that adults playing board game? Because I usually get that look of, that's a kid thing. Why are you doing it?
I think it's become fairly normalized over time. And I think I think part of it, well, there are lots of different aspects to it, but I bet like, even though I agree that is the response to someone who doesn't know much about the modern gaming hobby, but I bet even those people have played poker, or they've played a mobile game on their phone, or they've played a video game, or they played some sort of modern game, and maybe they just don't think about it as gaming because it's maybe that element of gaming has already been normalized in some way in their house or in society. And so I think gaming is everywhere. Gamification is everywhere. And I think there are some modern games too. I think we're fortunate to have one of them in Wingspan that has gone well outside the hobby and hopefully brought some people into the hobby. So the more of those that we have that are really inviting to people and cross over into other areas, I think the less you'll hear that answer to that question from people. Yeah.
Yeah, I got into it because what kind of got me into gaming in general, I had the younger age, my grandmother mainly. I remember staying the night with her playing rummy, Chinese checkers, just all kinds of stuff. And then as an adult and everything, I was working at a drop-in homeless shelter, and there was a group of guys that would never talk to anybody or anything like that. And I was trying to get in with them, and they were playing Magic one day. And I was like, what is this? So I learned Magic just so I would have the face-to-face time with them to try to get them connected with services. And, for me getting into Magic, it just went down the rabbit hole of YouTube on deck building. And then all of a sudden it was like going over to the Dice Tower realm and learning about some games. And Scythe was actually the first modern board game that I picked up and played. That was the start of my collection. So I guess my wife has you to yell at for the nearly 300 games in my basement right now.
That's awesome. That's neat to hear about Magic and those people at the homeless shelter that you connected with over that. Yeah, Magic is a game that I think it's in their 30th year maybe at this point. Mm-hmm. And I would still consider Magic a modern game too, because every set is even more modern than the previous one. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. So kind of like me getting into games, it was, Scythe, which is one of Stonemaier Games, and your design. What's kept me hooked with Stonemaier, though, is just how, you do a weekly live cast where you just answer random questions from people. Mm-hmm. But you also are very vocal about donating to different charities and stuff. And with every pre-order launch notification, you guys usually have been doing, you'll do $1 per pre-order sign up. How do you go about selecting which charities you're going to donate to? And, do you want to talk about any of those charities or how much you've given to those charities?
Yeah. And this is good timing for that too, because we have our annual charity auction coming up soon. We have primarily two types of donations that we make. One, like you said, there is whenever we have, or most of the times when we have a new game, sometimes a new expansion, but usually a new game, we pick one or more charities or nonprofits that are related to the theme of that game. So, for example, for our game Libertalia Winds of Galecrest, which is kind of a high seas pirate themed game, we picked a few organizations that are focused on the oceans and aquatic conservancy, or conservation, not conservancy, conservation. And then we have Wingspan Asia coming up soon. So we have a few organizations that focus on birds in Asia specifically. So that's one way that we give. The other way is through our annual charity auction. And for the charity auction, I choose 10 content creators in the tabletop game space that I want more people to know about. I think they're in a future year. I would love to have you be a part of that if you're still going strong next year.
Absolutely.
But so I choose 10 content creators, and they actually choose charities that they're passionate about. And for each of them, we associate a bunch of our kind of newest items, newest products for an auction just for that charity and for that content creator. And the winning bid goes to that charity. And at Stonemaier Games, we double that winning bid too. So if the winning bid is $500, we also put $500 in, and $1,000 goes to the charity. So in that case, I'm not choosing the charity, but it's usually something. Sometimes it's a big organization, but sometimes it's a very local organization that content creator is really passionate about or has had a really positive impact on their life. So it's neat that we get to contribute to a lot of different organizations that I had never even heard of that way.
Mm-hmm. So where does that come from with you and the company, that just the givingness there? You don't usually see that in a lot of, larger companies. And I would say with, 14 games, you guys are a large company. as far as product presence and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what was the driving force behind that?
It started in 2013. So in 2013, we had a very successful Kickstarter campaign for a game called Euphoria. At the time, it raised, I think, over $300,000, and everything went really well for that game. And I just felt really fortunate and blessed that it had gone so well. And I was like, I want to deliver something awesome to the world in the form of a tabletop game in terms of Euphoria, but I feel like I need to give more back in some way. Like, people have been so generous to us. I want to do something good as well. And that's when I came up with this idea of the charity auction in particular. So that way I could support content creators that I wanted more people to hear about, and I could support a bunch of charities in the process. So that was a big part of it. And one little thing that it ends up being a little bit self-serving, I would say, in the end, that I figured out maybe around that time, maybe a little bit after that, is we get asked for donations and contributions all the time from various organizations. And if it's a game donation, and especially if I know the game is going to be taught and played and used and not just kind of sold off, I donate quite a bit now. For a while, I was kind of hesitant to do that because I wasn't sure what people were actually doing with the games, but I do that a lot now. But having a specific charity auction every year is a way for us to say, okay, this is the thing, this is how we are giving back, because we can't say yes to every organization, but we can say yes to these 10 organizations every year. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense at all? Like, you can't say yes to everybody. Yeah. And so giving us a sense of purpose and saying, we're doing something good here. This is our way of doing it. It felt like a good balance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what other designers or publishers get you excited? I'm sure as a designer, you've played a ton of games. I mean, you publish games. So what's it take for you to get excited about a game?
Doesn't take much to get me excited about a game. I get excited about a lot of different designs. In terms of specific designers, I'm always curious to see what Ryan Lockett is creating. Ryan runs Red Raven Games, publishes games like Sleeping Gods, Above and Below. He's just a great Euro game designer, but he puts a lot of narrative into his games as well, a lot of world building. So I love Ryan's games. I get excited about Thunderworks quite a bit. Thunderworks does the role player universe. I think Keith is a really good guy. He does some really cool things. Paolo Mori, who was actually the designer of Libertalia. I think Paolo has some wonderful designs. It was really cool to work with him. Uwe Rosenberg. I'm going to name some people here. Uwe Rosenberg, Rob Davio. Rob does the legacy, or does a lot of legacy games. Has done so many other games too, but I love his legacy games. Uwe is very Euro game design. And many of the designers that we've worked with, really all the designers we've worked with, Elizabeth Hargrave, I think, has had an incredibly positive impact on the industry. So she's been awesome to work with. And I'm working with some other designers right now that I look forward to highlighting in the future, but I can't spoil who they are yet. Those are just a few. And really, I haven't named all of the designers that I've worked with here, but every single designer that I've worked with at Stonemaier Games has been a pleasure and a delight to work with. And whenever I hear that they're coming out with something else with another publisher, I am excited about it. I like seeing them create other things with other publishers too. Is there anyone that comes to mind for you right now where they just, whenever you hear that they have a new game, publisher, artist, or designer, you get really excited?
I mean, definitely Stonemaier. Every pre-launch I've done. Right now, I've got the Kickstarter for Donna Vulos from Thunderworks, and I actually got to interview with Jason, the designer of the game. So I'm really excited about that. What were some other ones? I'm still waiting on Darwin's Journey. I've Kickstarted that, I feel like it was 2 years ago, but I don't think it was that long. It's been a while, but I feel like just the pandemic time has shifted on what I can actually remember. So I'm hoping that arrives soon. And then right now, too, I've been on a big the Queen games. Mm-hmm. A lot of their stuff I've really enjoyed. Copenhagen, I've played on BGA like 180 times at this point.
Oh, wow.
And recently I've been getting into Kingdom Builder, and then it was like a Sign of the Universe because they just released the Kingdom Builder Kickstarter yesterday, I believe, for their anniversary edition.
Cool.
So I'm like, do I pull the trigger on that or not? I've already got the regular game that I got at Geekway. I got it at the Geekway flea market.
Oh, okay.
I got it in an expansion for like $30.
Nice.
And then I play on BGA, but I'm like, do I want to spend $80 on a deluxe Kickstarter for a base game
Uh-huh.
that I already have? So
Yeah.
it's a little rough. So what 5 games at the moment are you excited to get to the table or to try out for the first time?
Yeah, I only picked games for this list that I've actually received and that I have, and I actually picked games that I've been playing at least a little bit. There are some games that I think are arriving soon, like Darwin's Journey, I think is one of them, Dog Park, Clank Catacombs, and Flamecraft. I think they're incoming. I'm excited about them, but they have not arrived yet. So games that I'm actively playing right now that I am really enjoying are Cat in the Box. Have you heard of Cat in the Box?
I have. I haven't got to play it yet. Whenever I think it was Gen Con, we'd got there and it was already sold out. Like it had sold out instantly.
It's a lot of fun. It's a trick taking game where you don't know where you declare the suit of the card as you play it. So it's a game with a lot of flexibility, a lot of kind of silly moments, but also great strategy. Loving that. The Guild of Merchant Explorers. Have you played that one or heard of that one?
Yep.
Yeah. Really been enjoying that one. Castles of King Ludwig. That's probably, I think, the most recent Kickstarter that I've received. Yeah. That's a big box version of one of my favorite games from a long time ago. I love Castles of King Ludwig. A 2-player game called Land versus Sea. It actually does play 3 and 4, but I think it's a game that I'll mostly play at 2. And Magic. We mentioned Magic earlier. I'm excited to draft the new set Dominaria United in probably a few weeks. I have some draft packs for that. That's usually how I play Magic now. I just get a bunch of draft packs. I do one draft with it, and then I wait 3 months for the next set to come out and do it again.
Yeah, since I got into it, I've sold off all of my Magic stuff. I traded it in for store credit, and I replaced the Magic part. Kind of got replaced with Arkham Horror card game. The issue I was running into with Magic was I couldn't get my buddies together consistently to justify all of us having, to try to keep up with the modern format, and then after that, it was like, okay, we're only going to do Commander, but then even that, we couldn't get together enough to justify us all having like 12 decks of different commanders. I traded it in for Arkham Horror. That way I can do the solo. I've still got the deck building, but then there's also the storytelling and the game runs itself. So I've kind of traded that off. But we are approaching 30 minutes, and I want to be respectful of your time. I know you've got dinner coming up. Is there anything you want to plug before we end here?
Well, I appreciate you mentioned our anniversary celebration that we're doing right now. Like you said, everything on our website, our web stores are 10% off through October 1st. And my newest game, Smitten, it's a 1 to 2 player cooperative game. Not unlike Arkham Horror, but a lot shorter than Arkham Horror. It's only about a 10-minute game. That is available. That's comes for free with any order placed through October 1st as part of our celebration. And Between Two Cities Essential Edition. Oh, I have them here. I have visuals. Here we go. Here's Smitten. And here's Between Two Cities Essential Edition. This is on our web store now. I think you already have Between Two Cities. This is essentially just a combination of the original game and of the Capitals expansion. So if you already have those things, you don't need this new edition. It's just those things together. Oh, and we have 3 new promo packs for Rolling Realms. Also, not unlike Arkham Horror, this is a living rolling right game that we have. I know you know this, Corey. I'm saying this for watching who don't know. And so we have 3 new promo packs based on a few of my favorite, from Honey Buzz, Paul, who you talked to recently, A Feast for Odin, designed by Uwe Rosenberg, who I mentioned a few seconds ago, and Smitten. So they're just little mini games to add to your game of Rolling Realms.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Rolling Realms in the last week. Been in and out of a good and bad headspace, so I use it, games a lot to try to get back into a good headspace. And Rolling Realms has hit the table quite a bit. I'm on hole 9, I believe, of the solo, and some of those are kicking my butt. There was one that was mirrored, where you have to mirror it, and then there was what was it? You had to get one realm with 3, one realm with 4, one realm with 5 points or 5 stars exactly. And I could not get it. They took me like 3 tries to finally get it. I was like, okay. Nice. Yeah, we've been doing it a lot. All right. Well, Jamey, I appreciate the time and the interview, and really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, I appreciate your time as well. And hopefully I'll get to see a Geekway again next year. Do you think you might
I
attend again?
am waiting for them to
Okay.
announce it.
Awesome.
Me and Josh over at Meeple House Games, we met at Geekway last year, and we've stayed in contact. We still play pretty regularly on BGA and stuff. Message pretty regularly about every day, if not every other day.
Awesome.
And we've already talked about it. We're getting a hotel room. We're getting at the convention center because both of us had hotels room that were not at the convention center last year. So that was just more driving for us. And we both have already agreed that we're not going to volunteer as much either. We had several shifts. So it's like, okay, we'll keep it to a reasonable amount of volunteer time this year.
Yeah.
And then, be able to enjoy the convention much more by playing games.
Good. You and Josh were two of my favorite people that I met at Geekway last year. So I'm really excited that you're coming back. And I think that's probably a good strategy to leave plenty of time for yourself.
Yeah.
Serve people a little bit, but yeah, that's good to hear.
Yeah, I think Josh had like 8 or 10 hours a day that he was volunteering or something crazy. It was a lot.
Yeah. And I think one of the things at Geekway too, for those who haven't attended, it's basically a convention where you go and play games for 4 days. And like I don't volunteer at Geekway, but I still end up teaching games to other people at Geekway. So you can still be there for other people, be there for the other attendees without formally volunteering.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was great too. It was my first convention, and my wife went with me. She's not big into board games at all. She's like, I'm just going to chill in the hotel room. You do your thing. And I'm like, okay, here I am, just this awkward introvert at a 4,000 person convention. I'm just going to sit in a corner and not do anything this entire weekend. Didn't happen. They had the apps up. They had people with the little sign saying, hey, looking for players willing to teach.
Yeah.
You can't walk past the table without somebody being like, hey, we need a fourth. You want to jump in?
Yeah.
So it was great. Like I got rid of the awkwardness, and it worked out perfect. And I got to play games all weekend.
I'm so glad that was your experience. And I'm glad you said that too, because that was my fear going to my first Geekway too. I was like, maybe I'll just walk around. Maybe I'll get to play a game sometime. Maybe someone will invite me to a game. But it really is very welcoming. Especially to introverts, I think.
All right. Well, Jamey, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Corey.
All right.